Hi everyone and welcome to 3D Stories, the show where we interview businesses in 3D printing to see what makes them tick and the keys to their success. Today we're talking with WillowCreative, a well-known cosplayer and prop seller, not to mention content creator. Where did you start with the entire brand adventure?
I was a student in college. I studied for game art in the Netherlands, and I was already making props at the time, but they were handcrafted, like paper and foam, those kind of props. I was doing my 3D college on the side, where I learned a lot of 3D modeling, and I was able to use my college 3D print lab to basically abuse it a little bit to get both college points and 3D print knowledge in and make props. And that's how I decided on getting my first 3D printer in 2017, which was an ANET A8, which I used to make my first like commissions, sales as 3D printed props and like small stuff like that, and just to learn more about this new technology, which in 2017 got pretty fast growing. It was just starting up, but it was growing pretty fast. And even the years that followed, it's kind of exploded with the Enders and the Creality brand and everything like that. A little resin printer for small stuff came next in a few years that came. I got a Anycubic Predator Delta in 2019. The model was short-lived, but I still have like in terms of release and sales by the brand. But I still have that 3D printer. I rebuilt it into a really big custom Delta that is able to print 1 meter tall and helps me print really big 3D printed props in one piece, which is especially useful if you're using like transparent or translucent stuff, because you don't have any seam lines. And I also use it to print like mannequins for my costuming, so I can have references when I'm making my costumes. And now in 2025, I probably owned like 20 or 30 different models. I never quite found the right 3D printer. Like there's always some kind of like either in terms of UI or usability or quality or size or the way the machine is built that was never quite perfect. I'm sure everyone knows the struggle about finding the perfect machine. It's never quite right. You always wish something was a little different.
It would be too easy otherwise, yeah.
I know. The machines I use nowadays, I have a Prusa, I have a Sofol, which I like to configure myself sometimes, though I broke both my Sofol machines at the moment because configurations. And I have a Eleco Centauri, which they did a pretty decent job with. It's a really nice little value machine. A little resin machine from Eleco as well. And I still have my Deltas as well, which are one of my favorite machines, I think, even though they're not very common nowadays.
The Deltas are the biggest ones you have, right?
Yes. Yes, I have an Effelson V400, which is a really nice machine. Still holds up really well. It's probably one of my favorites. And it's also because they have there's a little clipper machine, like a little clipper machine with screen with the Effelson machines, and you can actually reconfigure them to control multiple machines. So I do that to also control my other Delta for clipper. And Effelson also has a new Delta, a Max Delta, which I really want, but they won't give me one yet. So I have to talk to them a little bit more, see if they want to give me their new Delta, which is 550 high, I think. I'm quite tempted by that one. And
we'll make marketing content out of this for them so they can give the printer to you.
They have gotten enough marketing out of me. Like I have had that V400 for 2 or 3 years now. It's one of my favorite machines. So every time I use it, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite machine. Effelson did such a good job with this machine. So I'm trying to get them to give me the new one as well. So I can't wait for that. And
so
then,
I understand. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I have not much.
I have a weird one for you, if you will. Cosplay, for the people that are in the community, cosplay is this giant thing with a lot of nerds. Granted, I found that most people in cosplay don't really do 3D printing, which has been an adventure on its own. Mm-hmm. But my question is, how would you explain to a normie what your brand is and what your shop is selling?
In terms of cosplay and 3D printing?
In terms of what your business
cosplay
is
such a big area. And 3D printing is such a big area. And I've noticed over the last few years, I have about 1 million followers across multiple platforms right now. And I get a lot of messages from people that want something to wear to Comic-Con. Nowadays, Comic-Con and other events are almost in every big city. Someone's has seen about it or read about it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially nerds that like to visit those places, I think about 50% or more are dressed up in some way or another. And they really want to join in the fun and experience it for themselves and try it out for themselves. And the most complex costumes that you see at Comic-Con have 3D printed elements in some way or another. And that's how they end up at my place. Like, hey, I need something made for my costume, an accessory, prop, or an entire costume. And because I have that background in 3D design from college, I'm able to customize that for them. And I can make 3D prints for cosplay that nobody else can. And especially with the machines and the knowledge I gathered over the last few years, I can make really unique stuff like full size LED props and really complex work like that. And that's really where I pick up like the biggest jobs and sales from those special cases where they need something really impressive.
Which actually is one of the points that I wanted to ask you in the competitive advantage. Like, how come your shop is running and existing? How do you find your clients, and what the competitive advantage is against random crap from Temu or from China or from other places?
Yeah, especially, yeah, exactly, because I have about 12 years in cosplay, and
Wow.
I wear them myself. A lot of my work I wear myself, so I know exactly where the weak points are. And I also design everything myself, which is very strong. It takes a lot of time, but it's also very strong in terms of results. And I don't accept any files from others because I've done that before and it's always a mess. And I always want things done my way and make sure that it is strong in a way that only I know would work well, which is a downside sometimes, and because it takes a lot of extra time to design it yourself, and also because 3D design in itself is a profession basically. So doing all that yourself is pretty complex, but there's always some people that are willing to pay for it and willing to reserve my time for that. Uh, because of that, I always have like a wait list for like a couple months in advance. I have wait lists until 2026. Like any people
Wow.
that want work done, they'll be scheduled for like April 2026 at the moment. So, and because of the followers I have online and the work that I show off that I wear myself, people are very interested in getting their own done because they see it demonstrated. They know that I wear my own work and they see that it works and it looks good. That is like their favorite way to see it, because I see a lot of 3D printed prop makers that only display renders or pictures or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. That you don't see it getting used, and people like seeing it used in an actual setting, and
Yeah,
that
have
works
the
really well for
actual
me.
use case in front of them. Do you have most of your orders as those specific custom order, the one-offs, or do you have more revenue from the basic stuff that's made in batches?
So I do a lot of. There's a different ways in ways I make my income. I would say about 30% is like pre-made sales. So things like 3D files that I made for custom masks and stuff that I designed. And those can either I have a couple props that are sold only as STLs, and then I have a couple props that are sold as STLs and as 3D prints, and then I have some unique designed masks and horns and other accessories, mostly for like fantasy purposes, that are not sold as STLs. They're unique designs and they are sold as 3D prints only. It's to protect my 3D designs for those unique pieces. The STLs that I do sell are usually from intellectual property protected video games and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that people like to use, because those are like the STLs from video games. Those are very common for like cosplay characters, and a lot of cosplayers that make their own work, they have their own 3D printers, so they want the STLs. Whereas the people that go to like fantasy rent fairs and stuff, they want to print it for them. So I offer only the 3D prints for them because they don't have a 3D printer. And so that's about 30-40% of my sales, I would say. The other 30% is from collaborations with video game companies and other companies that hire me for content creation. Basically, I make a costume in, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks from one of their characters to promote their video game. So I post a lot about the making of for their costumes. And for a straight month and a half or something, I only post about making that costume for that video game, which brings the video game to all my followers. So that's it's basically like a content creation income. And I sometimes get 3D models from them, which are like private 3D models from their video game developers. And I modify them into 3D prints for the costumes that I'm making sometimes, or I use other materials if suitable. And then the last 40% that I make is the custom orders. So custom costumes, custom props, and things that I design. And those take the most time, but they can also be the most expensive. Usually the video game collabs pay the best, but they are very stressful because marketing doesn't know deadlines, and it's always a hard 2 or 3 weeks of working on a single costumes just to get it done before the deadline and make sure that I get all my stuff posted online.
That's a very diverse set
I
of
like it that
different
way.
incomes.
Yeah, I like it that way.
Which one do you like the most and why?
I like the custom orders the most, but I get paid the least for it in terms of money per hour. The video game collabs pay the best, but I don't have them every time. Like, it's like maybe 6 a year or something, and they pay well, but I just don't get them a lot. And sometimes I decline them because I don't like the costume that they propose to me, or because the deadline is just too short and I would be working out my ass to get it done. And then the work in terms of design sales, STL sales, and pre-made 3D prints, that's like the most basic work, but it's a very steady income. I do like it. It's perfectly divided like that, and it gives me the most variety in sorts of work.
Do you remember your first sale in each category?
I think in 2015, I made Diva pistols from Overwatch. Those are made from foam. Those are made from foam, so before I knew any 3D printing. I made those as a custom sale, custom commission for a friend of mine. And I made those pistols a couple times actually, because like my friends recommended me to other people, like, hey, look at these pistols, they look really good, you should get these for Comic-Con. And so I made like 3 of those. And in terms of design, I remember when I got my A-nets, one of the first things I made for my costume was a pair of horns that I made for my Warcraft costume. And I actually started selling the design and the 3D print for those horns online via Etsy. And I think those were the first ones. I still sell those horns, and I still sell lots of masks and other horns that I designed myself. That's basically what was the first time
there's a separate category just for those.
Yeah, just masks and horns, and it's quite a big part of my store. So that was like one of the first things I sold as a design. And then for video game collabs, I'm not too sure. That one was pretty late because they want you somebody with a lot of following. So it's been a while. I think it was probably when Warcraft Classic came out, the Burning Crusade release. I made an Illidan cosplay for Blizzard World of Warcraft. And then I also, actually even sooner than that, but I wasn't paid for that. I made a character for RuneScape for their RuneFest convention as part of my graduation project. So I would say that was the first video game collab that I had. And I wasn't paid for that. They compensated my costs, and I used that as a graduation project. So I had like a 3D printed dragon and everything that I made as a costume for their video game. So that was my graduation project, and then I transitioned that into like part of my work.
So you started work on the brand straight away after college?
Yeah, I still work for them every once in a while. Every once in a while when they release like a new update with a new character or a new weapon, I usually make the weapon or the prop for them, and I show it off online and show how it's made.
That's such a complex set of skills that you managed to bring together and find a nice way to monetize all of them together.
Yes, I was actually quite lucky because I did my graduation project just before COVID, and a lot of video game companies didn't know that cosplay could be such a big viral thing, because sometimes you can see some costumes go pretty viral, like really impressive work and stuff like that. And COVID started and all the conventions stopped and everything went online and focuses on the online environment and getting more exposure online basically. And video games started to realize like, hey, if we pay content creators of all sorts, not just cosplay, for promotion, it's much more of an organic way of promoting our video game than just buying ads on Facebook or something. So they started paying a lot of content creators, streamers, and cosplayers, not just cosplayers, but also like streamers and YouTubers. You saw that really blow up with COVID. And I just finished my graduation at that point. And my graduation project was basically that. Like I promoted the video game by making a costume of their character. And I started getting more of those gigs, I noticed, through COVID, from just making the costumes at home and putting them online. And I hope that the video game gets some extra exposure for them. And it worked out really well, and it's still like a really popular marketing strategy nowadays to pay content creators.
What would you advise someone that dreams of being a prop maker? That's a
tricky.
hard one.
I had a lot of freedom in college to explore that area. I was able to merge my prop making projects with my college education. So I had a lot of freedom to choose what I wanted to do in terms of graduation. And I proposed those projects to my teacher, like, hey, can I do this? Can I do this? It focuses on cosplay. This is what cosplay is, etc., etc. And they were like, oh yeah, it's fine because you're doing 3D design for this, right? So
That
and you
must
can
be an
use our 3D
interesting
printing
talk.
lab. So I was able to really explore like the extra prop making through college and get time and supplies and machines to help grow that. And that worked out really well for me. And then, of course, on the side, I posted my work online. Make sure that you get all the big platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Doesn't matter how like poor your pictures are or your videos are. If you're making cool stuff, people will want to see it. And that's a really good way to reach more people and get work done like that. But you also got to realize like your limits and see how good you are at something. Like a lot of my work, I only make it if I know I can do it or if I've done it before successfully. And if I know that it's going to be a very tough job, or I scale it down, or I make it easier for myself, or I just say no. So that's something you gotta realize your limits.
Do you reckon it should come first trying to make some basic things and market them, or should a newbie start learning the skills, and once they have skills they are proud of, then start trying to sell stuff?
It depends a little bit on where somebody's at. Like, for example, I had the 3D design backing, so I was able to really focus on that customization. And if you don't have like the 3D knowledge, it's going to be very difficult to pick up. Like I said, it's an entire profession in itself. So I know a lot of prop makers that they know a little bit of 3D design, but they're not proficient enough to use it a lot to support their work. But a little bit is always helpful. And they do just fine as prop makers too. And they work with other people to make sure that they fill those gaps in knowledge and skill that they have, and work it out that way. And it's always good to focus on something that you know and are good at and that you like to do, and then figure out a way to make it work for you in terms of sales or in terms of getting customers for that specific subject or project. So I always made almost all of my work is something I made for myself in one way or another first. And then I can figure out the problems with it and the struggles and if it's worthwhile to actually sell or in some way or another. If it's really difficult to assemble or or expensive to make, then maybe I'll design the tutorial or the actual STL design, and I don't bother with any other sales for that project. And if it's easy to assemble or something that like my machines can support very well, then I'll finish the design and have customers be able to actually get the project itself.
So basically either have at least the beginning of the skill, or find somebody else who does, and they should be their own first early users to
I think
test the
so.
products themselves.
Yeah, because
Alright.
then you can figure out what's wrong with it and if it's easy to do, or like if it's the perfect thing is, of course, if it's easy to assemble or make and fits in your specific skill set or the specific tools that you have, and there's very little competition for it, then that's perfect, you know? And then focusing on current trends, like for example, a couple years ago, there was a big cosplay trend with, I don't know if you remember, the Bowser meme.
Oh, yeah.
Bowser turning into a girly Bowser. And it was extremely popular amongst cosplayers as well, because I was one of the first people to jump on it. I had designs ready within a week. I think I made a couple thousands just from me being able to scoop up the first links and the first designs that were available and be able to fill that gap.
Yeah, being
It's a little
on
bit
top of
harder
the trends.
nowadays to do because there's a lot of people that try the same thing. But it was a pretty simple design and very simple to execute, and it was perfect in terms of my accounts and my store, because it was like a pair of horns and a little crown, which worked out really well for the way I had things set up in terms of horns already.
Do you reckon there is a difference specifically in the prop buying community between Canada, US, and Europe?
So I started in Europe, and I moved here in America about 2022. I actually, in Europe, about 30% of my sales went to America, I think. And I feel like a lot of European customers like doing it themselves a little bit more. They're a little bit more stingy with their money. And Americans are pretty happy to just buy whatever and get it shipped to them. And in terms of cosplay, there's a little bit more focus on fantasy in Europe, and in America, it's a little bit more focused on Comic-Con and pre-existing franchises. But other than that, it's pretty similar, I would say.
Okay. I'm asking also because in Europe we don't have that many Comic-Cons, at least not on the level that
You'd
the
be
US has.
surprised how many there are when you start looking into it. And I had more Comic-Cons and events near me in Europe within a 2-hour drive than I have here in a 2-hour drive in America. And that's just because of the sheer scale of the USA. Because
you have to
cities
drive everywhere.
the only cities I have within a 2-hour drive of myself is Tampa and Orlando, which is 2 major cities. And they have regular events like 2, 3, 4 events a year, which makes maybe 6 a year that are within a 2-hour drive for me. And when I was in the Netherlands, I had at least 15 events within a 2-hour drive for myself.
Wow. I need to move to Western Europe, obviously.
Yeah,
in
Western
Eastern Europe we have
has
like
quite
5.
yeah, then again, the Netherlands is a pretty concentrated country, and I also had access to a lot of big German cities, which also have quite a lot of events going on.
I cannot wait for the next con here. It just finished East European Comic Con 2 days ago, over the weekend. I only caught the final competition and it was worth the time. Do you have any future plans that you can share? Anything exciting on the horizon?
From now till the end of the year, I got a bunch of cool custom orders coming up. I don't normally take this many custom orders. Like I said, I'm booked until like April, until next year. And that's because I'm working on a workshop in my backyard, which is just very expensive. And so I got my own workshop going on where I can put all my printers, my painting, my storage, and sewing and all that. So I have like a nice big little room for myself, and it's
That's
just
gonna be so
expensive to
nice.
insulate and put AC in it and all that kind of stuff. I'm already happy I had the building, but yeah, it's expensive. So I took up a lot of custom orders, and some of them are known projects, such as the animatronic werewolf heads that I've been making a couple years ago for Halloween. I took a couple orders for them and improved the design on that guy, and then I can finish that up. And then I have a couple custom orders for props from Arcane show from League of Legends. So like the Vi gauntlets and the Caitlyn rifle. So those are going to be very cool. Like I said before, I only take custom orders basically for projects that I like to do and that I know I can execute well. So I'm really looking forward to those. And what else I got going on? I got some 3D printers I need to configure, the Sofals I need to repair. I got the new Sofal Max, which is the 500 by 500, which is absolutely amazing. And then I broke the hell out of it because it seemed to forget the Z offset, and then it wasn't in my start configuration because my start print macro, because I was messing with it. So it forgot the Z offset and then tried to start the print and just completely rammed the hell out of everything. So that is broken right now, but I'm getting replacement parts for that. And yeah, that's about it for the end of the year. I got some new animatronic wings that I want to make, and the animatronic wings is one of those things that I like to make for myself, but I also have used them myself, so I know that they're not suitable for sale. They're super impressive, and people ask me about them all the time. Oh, I want to buy them, I want to buy them. They break down so easily, and they're so expensive and difficult to make that it would not be worthwhile to sell as a project, because it would
Why
just...
not just the kits for the motorized side?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but people want the framework too. Like, they want the frame for the wing,
Yeah.
and that's the part that breaks. So, and
Yeah,
the
maybe just
problem...
as a tutorial. You can't
Yeah, and
send that in
the
shipping.
problem with the animatronic frames is it is very reliant on what kind of feathers and what kind of parts you add to the wings, because it adds weight, and
Mm-hmm.
that weight balance is very particular. So if it's too much, it won't work. If it's too light, it won't work either. So you
Oh,
cannot
wow.
just sell the frames and expect people to balance the weight themselves based on what they add to it and not have a break. Like, I already break it for myself, and I know how to figure out the weight balance. So I know that's not going to work as a project, because it's just not going to work when people have to add their own weight. I add my own weight, and I know how to like add it in a way that works, and it still breaks. So it would be unreasonable to expect that from sales to work out. But
I've
yeah, I got
always
some...
wondered why wings weren't much more popular as cosplay props.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got some more of these wolf
Ooh,
masks
furry
coming
stuff.
up. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, a lot
incredibly
of
good
my
looking.
customers are furries, so those are always a very good customer to have, because they're pretty...
Furry suits are expensive,
Yeah, they're
and for
also
good reason.
very willing to spend the money and the time on waiting for something that they want custom made for them. But that's the difference with furries and cosplayers, because cosplayers want to do it themselves. They have their own 3D printers, and then furries, they want something made for them. So I have a very large variety of customers that switch between furry or cosplay, basically. But yeah, I mean, I
And you
have like
can't
a
just
cord for
print
these.
this, yeah.
Yeah, the base is 3D printed, the teeth are 3D printed, and in the past, all of this had to be custom molded or custom
Wow.
sculpted. And the 3D printing makes that process a lot faster and easier to replicate as well, and easier to make adjustments, because this guy has been broken a couple times and he needs a new redesign, and that makes the 3D makes it a lot easier to make adjustments for that. But yeah, this one is animatronic and lights up. You can see it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's beyond a bit complex. Yeah, oh, wow. Is that on a manual trigger or is it on a sensor?
It's random.
Ah.
It's random. It's not on a sensor. But yeah, he's. I always get a lot of requests for this guy when it's coming around Halloween. So that's why I'll be working on some soon.
No, I'm jealous. I want one for Halloween for myself.
They're $3,000, so it might be a little bit better to consider.
Yeah, and I don't think I have the skills to manipulate fur that well.
Yeah, exactly. I have like the advantage I have. I taught myself electronics, and it started with like Christmas lights and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know a lot more about it, and it's just another feature of some of my costumes that give me that unique skill set to get those really difficult projects going, and get extra customers who require that specific skill set.
I was gonna ask, because I imagine you weren't born with the entire set of skill sets, although I wouldn't be surprised. What was the original skill set and how did you expand upon it?
I would say digital art was like the first thing I did as a teen. So when I was like 13, 14 years old, Photoshop drawing with a tablet. And I worked on the side as a private service. So like private
Mm-hmm.
service for video games. And a lot of that was custom work, modifications, and learning how things work in video games. And that's how I ended up at a video game college. And learning all that has been super useful for drafting patterns digitally, and making 3D models and designs for these kind of costumes, because I just like the characters so much more than the video game itself, actually. So I just liked, and because like if you wanted to be a character artist 15 years ago, it would have been very difficult to make it in the video game industry. And then the video game industry started going downhill more and more and more. until like the AI collapse that we see now. So I was very glad to have focused on like the cosplay character design instead of the actual video game development itself.
Do you reckon
And
other video game artists could actually go into making props?
yeah, I would think so. I sometimes give lectures for my old college and saying like, hey, there's other possibilities than going into video game development. You can learn 3D printing and get into STL design. And I know a lot of prop makers that commission video game artists and students to make their STL designs for them because they don't know 3D modeling as good. And so that's what I mean with like, hey, you know a friend, if you don't know 3D modeling, because it's a complete profession, so I completely understand if people are not mastered at 3D modeling enough to make it work for their props, and they'll hire some video game students and they learn about the market that is cosplay and Comic-Con and STL design and prop making and everything like that. And it's just another opportunity to find work in. And I give lectures about that for my old college quite often because I did my graduation project about it back then. And my professors were like, yeah, sure, just do it, it's fine. And then they didn't realize how big of a market and how much different ways you can apply 3D design in terms of cosplay and content creation and stuff like that. And they were actually quite impressed with how I was able to find a whole new line of work in this area compared to traditional video game development that they always push students towards. And they were like, oh, you can work for video games in a different capacity for either the fandom and the video game content creator business as a collaboration for content creators, or you can go and support the fans of the video games themselves by making STL files for cosplay.
That feels like a dream job for the nerds in, well, every
Yeah,
niche.
it depends on what you like. I know there's a lot of students and fellow students of mine that ended up just doing the video game development stuff. You have to be a little bit more open. Like, you can't just sit behind the desk and scribble away for your video game art. You have to be a little bit more open to sharing your work and showing it off and being able to market your own business because a lot of us are just self-employed. There is no big studio that employs cosplayers. I know there's like marketing agencies that employ cosplayers to set them up with collaborations for video games. I don't do that, so I just do it by myself. You gotta be able to put yourself out there a little bit more and be able to learn a lot of variety of skills to make sure that you grab those specific customers that require a very specific set of skills to execute their project.
What do you reckon is the current biggest challenge that you're facing as a business? Like, what's the biggest challenge that you tackle every day or every month?
I think it's mostly estimating your time and making sure you get paid enough for your time. It's a struggle that every business owner deals with, is making sure you hand out the right quotes for the time that you're probably putting in, and making sure you get compensated appropriately for the time you end up spending for that kind of project. So you got to be very certain about how a project is put together and how much time that is going to take. And if there's any, like, you have to be able to visualize the entire project and every step that it takes to get to the final presentation, the final item. And if you visualize a step that might pose a very large challenge, you got to be able to say no and be like, yeah, this is going to take way too much time and stress to figure out, and I'm not the right person for it.
That feels like a lesson that was carved in blood at some point.
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of projects over the years that ended up not being the right fit for me. Like I said, I was in college at the time, so I was able to have a little bit more freedom to figure out what works for me and what doesn't without too much risk to my financial status or having problems with getting my income sorted. So I just had a college loan, so I was able to figure that out on the side and make sure that eventually I would figure out how to give the right prices for my work. And I'm sure it's something that a lot of new businesses struggle with. It's not just prop making that struggle with getting the right quotes. And also, if a job is not the right fit for you, and even if you're already halfway through, you got to be able to have the room to cancel or refund or anything like that, and make sure that that it doesn't destroy your time and you can focus on a different job instead. Especially if you already have the room to accept multiple jobs.
That is the struggle with every artistic endeavor to begin with. As long as you make it for money, you're always going to have that problem, right?
Yeah, for sure. Making sure that you have the motivation for a certain project. Because, like, I get a lot of requests for props and cosplays that are not in my area of expertise, or they're not my subject of choice. Like, I don't make any, for example, I don't make any Call of Duty, Helldivers, those kind of games, because it's just not my style. And I know that I don't have the motivation to finish a project that would take 200 hours to complete for a subject that I don't like. So then I just know, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in this subject and it's not going to work out. So I know there's not a lot of freedom when you're just starting out to get picky about your projects, but if you can, do it, because being happy to work on something helps a lot more and it goes a lot faster and smoother if you do. And so
And
if you
prevents
have the room,
burnout.
yeah, exactly. And that's also why I have all these different types of income, because not only is it more steady that way, because it's less risk of one income stream, like either the STL designs of pre-made prints, the video game collabs, and the custom orders. If one of those drops out, I still have the other two. So I don't get a lot of risk by not being able to do one of them.
Finally, a weird question, or a more interesting one. If you had access to a genie that can grant you one wish, and it can change a decision that you made in the past, or it can give you a skill set that you don't have, or it can change anything, what would that wish be?
That's very difficult, because if I want to learn something or I want to make something, I try to do it. And so that's gonna be very tricky to think about.
That's a power of the mindset at that point.
Yeah,
It's that special mindset of, I want something,
if I
so I
could
just do
go
it.
back, I would be very happy if I had the possibility of working with like a second person that knows what I'm doing, because I'm very picky about my work, so I work alone and I don't have that extra help. So, and I have a very hard time outsourcing work, basically. So then I could do a lot more of slow things like the designs or something like that, work that takes up a lot of my time, but I won't outsource it to anyone else, because I know how I want it done. I want it done according to my own specs, and I find it very difficult to rely on somebody else to make sure that they get it right and be able to outsource that time for me.
Yeah, and a partner is best found when you're just starting out or right after
Yeah,
starting out.
absolutely. So somebody in college or something would have been awesome. But I was basically the only one in my class that was interested in this stuff.
That's how it goes with cosplay.
Yeah, and like I have a bunch of friends, but they don't know 3D design, and they do like the costuming parts and stuff for fun. They didn't turn it into a business. So being able to find the right person, the right partner would have been awesome.
What would you look in for a partner if you were to be looking now?
I would probably just not have a partner, but an assistant that does all the menial work, all the slow stuff.
Automating the old way.
Yeah, like cosplay props need to be sanded and for to prep for paint and stuff like that, and the design work needs to be cleaned up and all that kind of stuff.
On that side, the age-old entrepreneur advice might be useful of just get an intern.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
God, sending all day as an intern.
Then again, interns are not as experienced, so then you're running into that issue again where I want stuff done my way, and it's going to cost me more time to clean up their work. So
Yeah.
that's why I've been holding off, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right now.
Exactly, like it's not like the shop isn't just covering everything that you need at this point, which is amazing in its own right. Being
Yes.
able to, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in for an interview, because I know people make money from selling cosplay props, and I know there are people like you that make a living out of this, but I cannot imagine the path to that, even when properly and logically described.
Yeah,
It's
usually
like
it's from
the way on the rainbow.
almost always it's from costuming yourself, being your own cosplayer. And then you start out making like little props for friends and family, people you met at Comic Cons, stuff like that.
Okay, so that's probably the best starting point for anybody that dreams of
Yeah,
doing
work on
this and
yourself
wants to
first.
start.
That's basically it. A lot of people started out as a hobby. And it also depends, like, if you want to keep it as a hobby or if you have the mindset to turn it into a business. Because not always is turning your hobby into a business a good thing for everyone. For some people, it's way more convenient to just have a 9-to-5 job and be able to turn it off when you get home. So it's very specific for that, depending on what kind of person you are.
How did you decide that this was worth pursuing as a job and not just a hobby?
Well, I was in college for a long time, so I extended my college by about 2 years, just delaying, and because I was working on my costumes on the side and working on like little custom orders on the side, so my college suffered a little bit because of that. And so both of them kind of grew together
Aligned,
until
yeah.
I graduated for like the costume project that I did for my graduation project. So, and then I was like, well, I could try and make this a business because I knew that the video game industry wasn't doing very well. So I'll just keep doing like these customs and use my 3D printers to make pre-made stuff. And that just grew and grew and grew in terms of designs that I sold and the printers that I had and the orders that I had.
Yeah, so the decision came pretty late into already selling a couple of designs.
Yeah, it was later in college, I would say. I think I was like 22, 20, 21 when I was finishing college at like 25. And by then, over those 3 years, I already grew like the 3D print library that I made and the 3D printers I had and the designs that I was selling.
I cannot wait I cannot wait to see in a couple of years how many people credited their journey into selling 3D props to your stories. Because I'm sure there already are some out there. Yeah, thank you so much for the time and for
Yeah,
everything.
absolutely. Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to our next chat.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Hope it was
Right.
useful.
It was very useful. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, either to shoot to WillowCreative or you have any requests for who to interview next, leave us a comment, leave us a message, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.